All right. Thank you, Paul, for leading us through worship tonight. We've been so blessed to have you here, and thank you so much for doing that. As we get started into the message tonight, I just want to take a second and say thank you to Sam Roberts and Life Church. A lot of this message and this content comes from one of Sam's messages, so I just want to say thank you to them for making this material available to us. We really appreciate that. So right now we are in a season called Lent. We talked about that a little bit in the past couple of weeks, about this time leading up to Easter and leading up to the crucifixion and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And during this time, we are focusing on the Gospel of John and what the Gospel of John has to say about the life of Jesus Christ and who he was as a man and as a divine being and what that means for us. And we are using a book by a guy named Adam Hamilton to kind of guide us through this time of Lent. So there are links to that book in the notes section today. So if you want to grab a copy of that, you can go a little bit deeper. We're not covering everything in the book. So if you want to get a little bit extra, that's a good way to do that. And this week we are taking a look at a part of John that's referred to as Jesus's farewell discourse. This takes place during the Last Supper, and it's Jesus's basically last lessons to the disciples. He knows what's coming. He knows that he's about to be betrayed and put on trial, and he knows that his time with those disciples is short, those people that mean the most to him. He knows that time is short, and he wants to take advantage of that and teach as much as he can before he can't anymore. Matthew and Mark actually spend very little time during the Last Supper. We get a lot of the details for communion from those two Gospels, but they don't spend too much more time on it than that, whereas John spends 5 full chapters. It's obvious that this moment was very important to the author of the book of John. As we continue to see the author of John wanting us to focus more on believing in this person of Jesus Christ and trusting him, than simply following him and obeying him. That this is more of the spiritual side of the belief that John is focusing on. In these last moments in the upper room, there's a time where the disciples are arguing with one another about who is the most important, who's the most valuable, who's going to be sitting at the right hand of Jesus when he marches into Jerusalem and conquers the Romans. At this point, they're still thinking that he's going to overthrow the Roman government that's been oppressing them. And Jesus has been trying to explain that his kingdom is very, very different from the ones that they are used to seeing. And they're busy trying to figure out who's going to be the best out of them. And as they're having this argument, Jesus goes to the door and grabs a pail and water and begins to go around the table and wash their feet. And in first century Jerusalem, where they are, this would have been a dirty job. It's a servant's job. It's not a job for a teacher or rabbi or master, as they referred to Jesus. We see this in the passage that Paul read for us earlier, the account of this event. And one of the parts that we kind of skipped over there is one of the disciples telling Jesus, like, no, you're not going to wash my feet. And Jesus says, you don't understand. I have to do this. This is an example of what my kingdom means. So while the disciples are arguing about who's first, Jesus starts to show them that who's first is not the point. As we go through life, we know that to mature physically, we have to increase. When we mature physically, we literally grow in size. Our muscles get larger, our bodies get larger. But to mature spiritually, we have to decrease. And this is the lesson that Jesus is trying to teach here. That as we, our spiritual maturity doesn't look like physical maturity, where when we mature physically, we're growing larger, like literally physically growing larger. When we mature spiritually, we become smaller. We decrease. Mother Teresa said this, and I love this. It says, if you are humble, nothing will touch you, neither praise nor disgrace, because you know who you are. Earlier in John, in chapter 3, verse 30, John the Baptist says this. He says, "He must become greater," referring to Jesus. "I must become less." This is a foreign concept to us this day and age, that second place is okay. Our society says that that's not true, that we have to win. We are constantly striving to conquer and be victorious. And that's not to say that we shouldn't try our best and, hustle and try to, succeed in life. But we have to look at at what expense we're doing that. In sports, as we're growing up, as we move into a career, we're told that it doesn't matter who we have to step over as long as we're climbing that ladder. This is reinforced by all the social media we see online with Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. We're always trying to figure out who is liking our stuff, who that we're putting out there. How many people like me? How many people like this thing I said? How many people like this picture I posted? And it's all about me, and it's all about being number one. But Jesus is telling us that we need to become less. We need to be okay with second place. So what does it mean then for it to be less about me and more about Jesus? Well, there's three things that we're going to lose in order to do that. There are three things that we're going to talk about. The first thing, and if you're taking notes, write this down, is I have to lose my focus. And that sounds weird, but we have to get rid of the things that cause us to focus on ourselves. It says this in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2. It says, "We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith." We shift the focus away from ourselves. We stop focusing inward about what people think of us, and we start focusing outward on this person of Jesus. It's not about me. It's about Jesus. I have to lose my focus on myself and shift that focus to Jesus. And the second thing is I'm going to lose my stuff. We tend to put a lot of energy into our stuff. Think about that person, or imagine you're at the grocery store and you are walking out and you see somebody open their car door and thunk right into the car next to them. Your reaction, it may be like, "Oh man, that's not cool. That guy just dinged that person's car." But how far does it go beyond that? Not very. It's like, well, that stinks. Oh well. However, turn that around a little bit and imagine that is your car. You've parked at the back of the lot. You've got buffer spaces on both sides. You're that person who wants to make sure that your car is spotless and just keep it out there in the back of the lot. Somebody pulls up next and wham, dings your door. Your response to that is going to be very different because that's your car. That's your stuff. But what God is telling us is that this stuff isn't our stuff. This is God's stuff. All of our things that we have, they belong to God. We are blessed to have them and care for them. But all of our stuff, our money, our possessions, it all belongs to God. We give Him thanks for it. But we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to worry about losing it. Take your day, for example. We tend to, I know me specifically, I'll put together a to-do list and I'll have all these things, bang, 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 that I'm going to get done today, and I'm going to be productive, and this is going to be a good day. And then, I get to work and I get to the office, and the first thing that happens is somebody comes to me with something different that I didn't have on my schedule, and just wham, suddenly my day is shot. I can't do anything that I wanted to do. And this is something I really struggle with when I feel like my day has been ruined by somebody else. But what does it change when those interruptions to our day become opportunities, because it's not our day? This day belongs to Jesus. This day belongs to God. Thank God for this day in our lives. What is that? We now have an opportunity to show the grace of God to somebody that we weren't planning on showing it to. This is God jumping in and saying, I know you think you've got this, but let me show you a better way. This day is not your day. This stuff is not your stuff. Give it to God. Give thanks to God for it. It's not about us. It's about Jesus. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 24, it says, no one can serve two masters, for you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Our money, our stuff, and our time belongs to God, and we are stewards of it, blessed to have it. But we get so wrapped up in our possession of it that we stop and lose touch of the fact that it's not really ours to begin with. It's ours, given to us by God to bless other people with. So we're going to lose our stuff. And the last thing is I'm going to lose my life. I lose my life. And this sounds severe. If you're coming at this out of context, you would say, wait, what? But if you think about it, we do this every day regardless. We pretty much lose our lives to something. We lose our lives to so many things, and it all depends on who you are and your personality. We lose our lives to social media, to the internet. We get sucked in to Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and I'm not trying to demonize these things. They're great. I love them. I use them all the time. But we can go so far as to we derive our self-worth from these things, and we start to lose ourself in them. We lose ourself in our things and our stuff. Making sure that we've got the latest and greatest, new one of these, or a new model of car that's just come out. Making sure that we have the best and everybody sees us with the best. We can lose ourselves in our stuff. We can lose ourselves in our hobbies or with sports, where suddenly these things become more important than living our lives intentionally and recognizing these opportunities that God is placing in front of us every single day. We lose ourselves into these things. And we do want to lose ourselves, but we want to lose ourselves in Jesus. And all these things aren't bad. They're not destructive, but they can be when we take them too far, when we lose ourselves in them. So we need to temper that and remember to keep our focus on Christ so that we can lose our lives in Him and be blessed by that. There's a great example of this if you look at the relationship between a parent and their child. As a parent, you pour yourself into your kids, and I'm just getting started on this. My son Elliot is just about to turn 2. So it's a lesson that I'm kind of learning every day. But you pour yourself into your kid, and this doesn't even have to be your own kid. It could be somebody that you're mentoring, or just somebody at your church or whatever. The relationship doesn't have to be a blood parent, but that you pour yourself into this person, and when you see them succeed, you feel their joy. You feel that it's that pride of seeing them succeed and knowing that they've worked hard to accomplish that goal. And we see this in John again. Earlier we read when John the Baptist said, he must become greater and I must become less. And to give you a little bit of context for that passage, we'll look back a little bit farther at John chapter 3, verses 26, just verse 26. So John's disciples came to him and said, Rabbi, the man you met on the other side of the Jordan River, the one you identified as the Messiah, is also baptizing people, and everybody's going to him instead of coming to us. And John, I have to imagine, John the Baptist heard his disciples say this and said, yes, he's winning here. He is becoming second to Christ, and he sees it happening in real time and is so proud to have been a part of Jesus' ministry. And he tells his disciples, no, he must become greater. We must become less. We have to be okay with second because we find victory in Christ there. not in first place. So let's make it more about Jesus in everything we do, less about me. I want to encourage you to click the banner below the video right now to commit to that, to commit to making it more about Jesus and less about me tonight. And if you're, just click on the banner, raise your hand, and then pray with me. Jesus, I want to become less. I want to lose myself in you. Take my life and make it yours. Amen. All right, let's sing together.